Okay, count it. Hey, Chris, welcome to the Own Your Career show. How you doing?
Doing amazing. Thanks, Andy. How are you doing?
Fantastic, man. Excited to talk to you today about this new book, Renting from My 6-Year-Old. We've got to know each other over the last, I don't know, 9 months or so. And I've been anxiously awaiting this, got my copy when it came out, going through it. And so much wisdom in here. But what I think is really interesting, since this is a show that is a lot about careers, is that you've made some big pivots in your career from going one direction to going really far in a different direction. So let's start there, because I think everybody's interested in hearing stories. What have other people done with their careers? Is it okay to make a change if I'm not that happy? But you started out on a different path. So tell me about your career.
Absolutely. It was a much different path. And, I'm happy to be where I am. And I could not have done it without making some significant changes. So, yeah, just going back, I was born and raised in Chicago and always taught at a young age that I had to go get a good education and then a good job. I'd imagine a lot of people were taught that same thing. So that's what I did. I went to college and then I went to law school, and then I got a job out of law school, and I worked for about 8 years and was laid off in those 8 years, but got a different job, and then I went back to get an MBA, and I doubled down on the education, and I doubled down on the corporate world, and all those things worked to a certain extent. And I worked for 8 more years after getting that MBA, and I just got really burned out. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. I saw a lot of people doing completely different things with their lives, and I didn't think that the corporate path was my path anymore. So after some thinking about it and talking to some people, I started investing in real estate to try to create some different income streams. And that worked. I mean, I absolutely love that. I grew the income streams and grew the net worth. And then I started thinking about my family. So I had a couple little kids, and I did not want them to go through what I went through as far as education and all that time and expense and then working their way up the corporate world. So I wanted to develop a program that my little girl could really understand the difference between job income and investment income. So I wrote a book about that process, where I take her through a job and start allowing her to invest. So, she struggled with that whole concept, the way I struggled with it, and the way I see many other people struggle with that. But it's a story about her, but if you go a layer deep, it's really my story, and the same story I've heard from many other people as they transition from a corporate world or a job into investing or creating other sources of income, and it really changes lives. So it changed my life, it changed her life, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on it, and it's really helping other people. So I'm very excited about the book, very excited about sharing that story with as many people as possible, and hopefully helping people getting closer to the life of their dreams.
Yeah, I like that. And you've covered so much ground, and I love that you lay it out and tell that story with your 6-year-old, and how you've developed this with your kids. But going back to, you spent 15 years in the corporate world. What was it about the corporate world that made you want to leave? Was it your specific profession, or more how things are done in the corporate world? And were there mistakes that you made along the way that maybe if you had done things better, you might still be there? Or was it more about, just kind of disillusioned with the system and wanted to go run your own thing and make your own money?
Well, the whole purpose of going into the corporate world was to get out of my existing situation growing up. I came from a family of divorced parents. A lot of people do that. But I wanted something. I wanted a certain level of success in my life. And I thought that getting this education and going in the corporate world would help me. And it certainly did. It certainly did. I reached a certain level of success, and I'm very thankful for all that. And I enjoyed my time. But then there was only a certain level that could take me to. The pay increases were small. The vacations were small. There was only so many things that I could do within my corporate job in my company that were really fulfilling. And I just wasn't growing the way I wanted to. I wasn't surrounded by A players who wanted to just grow and live life to the fullest. So I started to attend other events, where real estate investing events and just other exciting events where I thought that I could be more of myself, whether that was doing exciting things or growing my net worth or income. And then it really took off from there. I'm looking around, I'm in the corporate world, I'm looking around and said, this is not for me, because there's a lot more to life than just a paycheck and the stability. I was willing to take some risk because I knew that there was much more out there available, and very happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been there. What was it about real estate that was so attractive to you?
The real estate was attractive because it had a pretty successful history of creating millionaires and people living life on their terms. It's not a get rich quick scheme by any chance, any stretch of the imagination, but there's something to be said for real estate, and it's a get rich over time strategy. So there's only so much real estate. There's demand in several states that outstrips the supply, and prices keep going up. I mean, I've seen that over the last 3-4 years. I wish I would have invested and bought everything that moved 3-4 years ago, because now prices are up 50, 100% since then. So it just keeps going that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. What did that process look like for you to get in? I know there's a lot of different ways to get educated. There's books and seminars and courses. I think you said you attended some of those. And how did you get started? What did your first investment look like?
It was really, really strange. I was just driving to work and listening to talk radio because I wanted to be informed. I wanted to know what was going on in the world so that I could participate in work conversations and not really doing anything different. And one day I get some type of ad in my phone, and it was about a real estate podcast. I have no idea where it came from. Okay. But I started listening to the podcast instead of listening to the talk radio. Okay. So I started getting educated way before I took action, maybe 6 months, a year before I started taking any other action. And then I started listening to more podcasts and all real estate related. And then I wanted to go to an event. So I found one of the podcast websites, and they had a listing of all these events. So I just missed one in my area, and they come around about every month. So I didn't want to wait another 3-4 weeks. So I found the closest one, the next coming one, and it was about 30 miles away. And it was in 2 days. So I drove there after work and met some incredible people, still great friends today, a lot of them. And the stories they told about, how they went from a corporate job, or how they didn't have much of a job, but they got involved in this and they started investing and they took chances and they bought X, Y, or Z real estate, and how they just built their portfolio. I was absolutely shocked. I was like, wow, this is something amazing. This is something that I was not exposed to before. And it really was a huge mindset for me, coming from the corporate world, being paid pretty well, by the way, and living a comfortable life. It was like, wow, these folks are very interesting. I want to get to know them more, but I'm really trained for that stuff over there in the corporate world. And I have a lot invested in all my education and everything, because I've got a JD, I'm an attorney, and I got an MBA from one of the top business schools in the world, in the University of Chicago. So it was a huge mind shift to do something outside the corporate world. And 2 years earlier, I would not have been able to make that shift, because I was really entrenched. And it just took more time and more talking to people and more podcasts sinking into my brain that really helped me realize, yeah, this other lifestyle is possible and it's attainable. So I just continued to meet folks at different real estate events, listen to podcasts, went to some 1-day, 2-day training events, and just started to meet people who were putting real estate transactions together. So what I do is I'm involved in the apartment world, and there were folks who were going out to buy these apartments, teams of 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and then there would be 20 or 50 people behind them making investments into the property. And I started by becoming one of those 20 to 50 people who were contributing money for the down payment so these folks can go acquire the property. And then there's just distributions and things that come after that back to investors like me. So very eye-opening. And I just started to grow the portfolio that way, meet more people who did that and invested more and more. And I'm a general partner on a deal and want to increase that portfolio as well.
Yeah, so then you decided you wanted to do this full time. So it was sounds like it was something. It was not only a possibility to make more money, but something you really enjoyed, right? And much more than the job you were doing, because you're making a big switch. Like you said, you had the JD, the MBA. That's a lot of investment. A lot of people. There might be a lot of attorneys out there who don't love what they're doing, but they're thinking, "Man, I already invested many years and over $100,000 in tuition to get this career. Like, I'm not leaving this for anything." But when you're pulled by something you really want to do, I imagine it makes it easier.
It's very hard to leave something that you've trained for a long time. Very hard, and it's almost it's really a shock to the pride that, hey, look, maybe there's a better path that fits my desired lifestyle somewhere else. And it was very difficult. And that's why I said before that, look, before I did this 2 years prior, I don't think I could have done it. If someone would approach me at that point and said, hey, look, let's go try this, I'd have been like, no way. There's no way. I have this corporate job. I have this education. And by the way, all that other stuff is beneath me. It wasn't until I started interacting with some very successful people who were in real estate and who were outside of the corporate world, which is really all I knew, that I really started to take notice. And, having that education in the background, whether it was a podcast or reading books on real estate, it really dawned on me that these other things are possible. And if other people are successful and they're living life on their terms, and they're doing the kind of things that I want to do, whether that's travel or spending more time with their kids or volunteering more. I wanted more of that rather than sitting behind my desk in the corporate world.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, this came from a, real estate podcast, because I've learned so much from podcasts. It was actually in 2016, it was a real estate podcast that changed my life. I thought I wanted to get into real estate investing, and I still haven't yet, but yeah, it might change in the future. But I heard a guy named Hal Elrod on a podcast called Bigger Pockets, which is like one of the biggest, real estate investing podcasts. And he was talking about his book, The Miracle Morning. And I got it right away, started practicing this morning routine, and it absolutely changed my life. I started getting into podcasts about entrepreneurship and realized that I had this strong desire to go run my own business, and started taking steps towards that. And 5 years later, here I am running a successful business, and you are a successful real estate investor, right? And businessman. And it all comes from, hey, we can go listen to podcasts and educate ourselves, and then spend time reflecting and figuring out what we want to do. And then you got to take that courageous next step. But it's amazing how the information is all out there, and our lives can be changed just from listening to a podcast.
That's absolutely right, Andy. And it's just taking one little step. No one goes from a job that they hate to a successful real estate investor or successful anything in one step. It takes incremental. Oh, let me just find out a little bit. Let me listen to a podcast instead of listening to the radio, talk radio or sports or whatever else is out there. Okay, now that I've listened to the podcast, maybe I will attend an event. Oh, and maybe I will read a book. All of these things are incremental steps that really help people go from something that they may not be very interested in doing and are just collecting a paycheck to really getting to a place where they're living life on their terms. So it's the mindset, and then taking some action to really start taking those small incremental steps and just moving towards it and towards it and towards it. And who knows? Maybe if somebody starts moving towards that, they veer off and they go do something completely different. Maybe it's not real estate. Maybe they started down the path of real estate and they start doing something else. Maybe angel investing, or they go into development themselves, or what have you. But it's just having the open mind and the ability just to try something new because something may be better for a specific person.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be investing or starting your own business. It may be that you work in as a lawyer or in finance, and you're like, I really want to try marketing, or do something, start some outdoor career or whatever. Like it's just about making the shifts and like figuring out what you really want to do, and then learning about it, going to that next thing, having conversations, taking the next step. Now you got into real estate investing. You've been very successful there with multifamily homes, and I'm sure we could go into a lot of real estate stuff. But you also have kids and decided to walk your daughter through this process, which is where this book came from. Now I'm committed to being a great father and teaching my kids about entrepreneurship and finding a career they love. But what you did was really, I think, unique and revolutionary. So can you talk about like how did this book came about and what you did?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So when I was in the corporate world, one of the things that dawned on me, and this is why I stopped trying to climb the corporate ladder, okay? It dawned on me that no matter how hard I worked, no matter how high I climbed the corporate ladder, no matter how successful I was or how much money I made in the corporate world, there was no legacy that I could leave to my kids from that corporate job. I could not leave the seat of CEO and put my daughter in the seat of CEO. Does that make sense? Sure, I would have had money, but unless she knew what to do with the money, it'd have been wasted. So I had to come up with a way to teach her how to really make money. There's a couple main ways. You can go get a job, which is what most people do. All right. You can make investments. You can go buy real estate or invest.
Yeah, you can work and you can save and invest and you can do well financially.
Yeah, you can do well financially. But how do you leverage time and money and people's experience? All the things that have been done already. How do you leverage all that? And I wanted to teach my daughter how to go from being an employee, making a wage, to being an investor, making investment income or collecting rent. So what I basically did is I took my career, all my education, and my career in the corporate world and my career in the investing world, and I condensed it down to about a year for her, and I took her through this process. I gave her jobs at home, I paid her wages, and then I offered her the opportunity to invest in things around the house and then collect rent from me and my wife. All right. And it was amazing. I had no idea this was going to happen, but it exactly paralleled my experience and the experience I see so many other people go through. They have money. They're comfortable making the wage. I and my daughter, and I see other people, we fall into this level of comfort and we're collecting a wage. All right. And then all of a sudden we're offered this opportunity to give away some of our money for the opportunity to make more money in the long run. And I refused that for a long time. My daughter refused that for a long time. And I see a lot of other people refuse that for a long time. Eventually I did it. Eventually my daughter did it. And hopefully eventually many folks watching this or who read the book or who don't do any of that, hopefully they make that jump too. And then she started creating passive income, multiple streams of passive income around the house. So it was absolutely amazing to watch her go through that process of not making any money, thinking that I was going to buy all of her toys and I was going to give her everything she wanted and then to she's making her own money, a little bit of money through jobs around the house, and then taking that money and investing it, collecting rent, and blowing up her portfolio. So she's making a ton of money every week that far exceeded her wage income.
And you said collecting rent, passive income, and people are probably wondering, well, how does she do that? So you had things like she bought the toaster from you, right? And then she's renting it back. Is that what it was?
Yeah. So the first thing I offered her was the toaster. So I said, hey, sweetie, if you want to spend 25 of your hard-earned dollars to go buy that toaster that's already sitting on our counter, you don't have to go to the store. It's sitting right there. You give me and mommy $25, and every Saturday we will pay you $1 in rent. Okay. And she was totally against that. But this is how investing works. You forego your current amount of cash for a future stream of income. And not everybody can do that. Not everybody can get over the fear of doing something like that, or get out of their comfort zone and make that leap from job wage earner to investor. She struggled with it. And there's a big section on the book about that psychological impact of being safe and secure with the money that you have.
Yeah.
But being able to make that transition to something bigger and better. I did that in real life. I see so many other people do that in real life. Some people can make that transition and some people can't.
Yeah.
And there's a big section in the book about how my daughter struggled with that and how she finally did that. I don't want to give too much away, but essentially she was against it. She didn't understand it. So she said no, which is absolutely the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then I just kept giving her some information, not forcing her decision. She had to make the decision by herself.
Yeah.
And over time, she eventually came to the realization that, hey, she's going to make more money if she invests, if she forgoes that $25 right now, and invest in something. So she had money that she could have taken to go buy toys. And her toys were at the toy store. They were dolls and whatever play sets. But we all have toys. We have vacations. We have cars. We have TVs.
Yep.
We have all these things. Those are our toys. Do we forgo that stuff to start generating more income that's going to balloon up eventually? Or do we spend the money on toys and just stay where we're comfortable?
That's the question, right? It's a hard shift to think about investing. And of course, we know at the most basic level, if you work for a company, you often have opportunities to contribute to a 401k. And I think there's data that show a lot of people don't even do that. But the smart people do give up a little bit of their income every week or month to go into that. You're saying there's even more opportunities if you're willing and able to shift some of the money you have today and invest in an asset that will give you, cash flow and more money over time. But you've got to be willing to make that trade go on the same journey that your daughter went on.
Exactly. And it's a matter of comfort. It's a matter of comfort and understanding. A lot of people don't even understand what's possible. You brought up the 401k, and people move jobs around. And what happens with the 401k is that you can take it and roll it over in an IRA if you leave your job. Well, that IRA is just sitting there, possibly earning something in the stock market at a good rate, single-digit rate of return, or you could self-direct that IRA and open up the world of investing, whether that's in real estate, land, whether it's commercial real estate like apartments or land or biotech companies or what have you. But you have to know that that's even possible to start getting educated about it. And then once you know it's possible, then start to get educated about it, and you can learn what's out there. So, if you think that a 10% return a year is good, what about a 20% annualized return? Or 30 or 40% annualized return? Those are possible.
And you went full time into this, but you don't have to do that, right? You could do it as a side gig. You could be investing in things, find people who need money for real estate investments, or like you said, investing in a startup or a biotech or even the stock market. I've lately been investing a lot in cryptocurrency and NFTs, a whole different ballgame, which is not necessarily for cash flow, but for, potentially higher returns. When you go out and do the research and find things, there's a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely. And every step builds on the last. You may go out and start learning something and then learn something, a completely different investment type that really may be interesting. So, it's just taking those first couple steps of, wow, I'm in this job. I have these wages. I'm comfortable. Maybe there's something more out there for me.
So as we get closer to wrapping this up, I'd love to, share some advice for people. You've been through the corporate path, you've run your own business, you've gotten into real estate investing, you are helping your kids and other people understand the importance of this, which I think is fantastic. What's some advice you would give at this point to your younger self as you're starting out your career?
Yeah, there's so many pieces of advice that I would give, but some of the main ones would be find successful people and do what they do. Let them teach you. Everybody that I've reached out to that's successful has been more than gracious in their help. I've helped people. It's actually very flattering when somebody asks me for help. So I love doing that. And a lot of very successful people are that way as well. They love to help. So take action and go find the help that you need. Just just mirror what somebody else has already done. They've laid down the groundwork, the pathway, the map, however you want to say it. Right. They're successful. It works. Just follow what they do.
Yeah. And I know, like me, you're big on hiring mentors and coaches and finding those people. And it sounds like you've had some along the way. And one of the things that struck out for me in your story too, is that you didn't just listen to the podcast and read the books. You can get information there, but then you went to the seminar. I would imagine you invested money in some courses and things to learn all this stuff and didn't just figure it out on your own. Maybe you did. But a lot of times people are afraid to take that next step. Well, I'm not going to spend that money because, I need it for other things. But if you want to get there faster, you sometimes got to be willing to invest in the personal development or coaching or courses or whatever it may be.
Yep. Yeah, that was a big mind shift for me too, because coming from the education that I had, I thought I knew it all or I'd figure it all out. But that's simply not the case. If you want to go faster and you want a good understanding and you want to really stack the odds in your favor for success, it may be worth paying somebody to get that education, get that knowledge quickly, and to help you from stepping in any holes.
Yeah,
so, I absolutely did.
They've already done it. So why not pay for the fast track, get this book and find programs that can help. What's something someone can start doing today? Someone's interested, like, okay, maybe I'm not going to change careers, but I am interested in investigating other options, maybe getting into real estate investing, maybe starting my own business. Like, what do you recommend people start doing right now?
Boy, there's a lot of free things you can do right now. Probably the easiest thing is to start listening to podcasts in whatever field you want to learn about. It's amazing what's out there. So, the podcasts, and there's also meetups, there's meetings, probably on any subject you want to learn about in your local area. Some of them are live in person, some of them are virtual. And the great thing about virtual is they can be across the country and they could be great events that you can attend now. So those two free things, podcasts and the meetups or the events. Just go. They're free. Most of them are free. Go get some great experience, some great knowledge, free knowledge, and just that's your first step. And it could be the first step of many that are going to take to make you very, very successful. So stay at it, keep learning, and you're going to have to take on some risks every once in a while, but it's well worth it.
100%. I agree. There's so much knowledge out there. Get books, listen to podcasts, go take an online course, go network with people. LinkedIn is great for that. Before we wrap it up, we did get a question here from somebody on LinkedIn, Paul Zamora, who asked, sorry, late joiners, have you talked about risk tolerance and the ability to lose money in the short term and gain in the long term? What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So that goes to, what's the portfolio look like? I've taken the approach of a diversified portfolio. So when I go to invest, I'll invest in different states and in different markets within those states and different teams of leaders and different sizes of properties. So for example, I'm invested in the Dallas area, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, but then also I was invested in Atlanta, and a property sold in Orlando and Jacksonville. So just diversifying that portfolio in different size properties. I've started to venture out. I have a big investment in a biotech company. I'm very excited about that. So I'm not just focused on the real estate. I've spread the money around. And if you take that portfolio approach, sometimes there's going to be things that do not perform as well as you would hope, but sometimes there's going to be things that outperform. We just got to keep going, learn what you're doing, get educated, and know the people who are involved. That's a key thing. You have to know who's involved.
Speaking of that, relates to a question I wanted to ask you. I've done a lot of investing, mostly in the stock market. Like I said, recently, getting into crypto and NFTs. I've had a lot of success, but I've also made some mistakes here and there. I'm sure you've made plenty of your own along the way. It's kind of how we learn. But I made one this morning and I'm kind of kicking myself. How do you help yourself get past those mistakes, learn from them, and make sure, you keep going. You don't run away and hide and never do it again?
Well, those things are going to happen. So you just have to keep doing it and get as educated upfront in the process as possible. There's always people who are going to be willing to take your money. All right. But when I think about an investment, it's my responsibility to understand what's going on and to know the people. The big difference between a real estate investment and a stock market investment is that that's a real piece of property there.
Hmm.
It's not going anywhere. And if it goes anywhere, it's insured. Okay. You think about the difference between that and a stock. I've seen companies, let's take Enron, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a very high profile company and their stock evaporated relatively quickly. It was locked down and then people couldn't get their money out. That doesn't really happen with real estate because it has value. It's bringing in money. People are living there. All right. And it's insured in case of a flood or fire or anything like that. So those two are very different types of investments.
Of course. And there's pros and cons. There's more, often more flexibility in the stock market, but you do have that real property there. It's not going in there with real estate. I had a comment from my friend Dave Gieselman who says, great to see you. Great to see you, Dave. And more questions coming in, but we do have to wrap this up. And I want to remind people about your book and where they can find out more information. So Chris, where can they go for people that want to learn more about this whole process and maybe rent from their 6-year-old?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, chrisbystriansky.com. I'm actually working on it right now, but it'll be up in a day or so. And then you can go get the book, Renting from My 6-Year-Old, on Amazon. It's hot off the presses, guys and gals.
There you go. The book is Renting from My 6-Year-Old, The Right Actions That Can Make and Keep Your Family Rich. It's available now on Amazon. I already got my copy and left my review. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show. Always great to talk with you and look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you very much, Andy. Thanks, everybody.